And we are also acknowledging the accomplishment of the women in the room. So I want to turn over the mic to Moana, who is not only a co-chair when it comes to our new podcast that we're launching. Mojo stands for Moana and Vivian. Mojo. So you'll please tune in to future podcasts that we're launching today with the International Women's Day. We want online and we're doing that so that if you may not step into more in person, you have an opportunity to watch this online. So, without further ado,
Hear me now.
representing Sherman Heights, another community in District 1, we have Lilian Garcia-Rivera. thank you all again for joining us. If you are now just tuning in, please feel free to share this link with your individual network or group or page. This is really meant to be widespread because we know that people may not feel too comfortable or may not be really concerned about the election, but we hope you will be inspired to go out and vote. If you are qualified, if you are a resident of District 1, which is covers a huge area of San Diego County, which includes from cities of Chula, Vista, Imperial Beach, National City, and communities within the city of San Diego, such as Barrio Logan, East Village, Golden Hill, and more. Additionally, District 1 includes unincorporated areas of Bonita, East Oka Mesa, Lincoln Acres, Sunnyside, and La Casa. So, because it is so diverse, we need to really just dive into the questions. So, without further ado, I will go ahead and move to Liliana. If you would start with two questions that you have, while she prepares for that, we're going to give an opening, an opportunity for our candidates to give an opening statement and tell us why. What motivated you to run for office? So we will start with Vivian Moreno, Councilmember of City of San Diego.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm Vivian Moreno. I'm currently a council member in the city of San Diego. And my why is pretty simple, why I'm running for supervisor. That's for my 2.5-year-old daughter, Michelle. I want her to have, first of all, I want her to still live in San Diego and be able to purchase a home in the next 20, 30 years. I want to make sure that we have parks and that we have services and that we have great amenities. A lot of great things happen in this county, and oftentimes the South Bay gets neglected. And so I want to make sure that we have good representation that has actually brought these services to our community. So that is why I'm running. Thank you.
Next, we have Elizabeth Efird.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Efird. And the reason that I'm running is I want to, represent my age group, right? Not a lot of us are getting involved, and I think a lot more of us should run. A lot more of us should get involved with politics. And one of the ways I'm doing that is putting my money where my mouth is and joining the campaign. I am an advocate for diversity and recognizing marginalized communities, as well as bolstering and uplifting them, being a part of one myself. As you can see, I'm also a Muslim woman. And it's happy Ramadan for those who are listening. But yes, that's my reason for running mostly is I want to just be a representative of younger folks.
Now we have Mayor of the Paloma-Aguire.
Thank you so much for having us, JoAnn, Moana, Ellen, and Liliana for co-hosting. My name is Paloma-Aguire, and I'm the mayor of the city of Imperial Beach. Happy International Women's Day. I am proud to stand on the shoulders of giants, my ancestors, my abuelita, my grandma, who raised 8 children all on her own and rented a refrigerator so that she could sell hielitos, which are frozen treats, to be able to support her 8 children. I'm a first generation Mexican American. I moved here in 2001. And I just fell in love with Imperial Beach, its people, and its waves. And I have dedicated most of my adult professional life fighting for social and environmental justice. My background is as a community organizer, fighting for immigration rights in Chula Vista and against predatory lending. I later became involved in the fight against the Tijuana River sewage, as we all know, has grown exponentially into the biggest public health crisis, I would say, in our nation. So why am I running? It's the same reason why I decided to run in 2018 and the same reason I decided to run in 2022, because I want to serve my community. I've been fighting for the South Bay. I've been fighting for the South Bay for many years, for San Isidro, for Nestor, for South Chula Vista, National City, and Imperial Beach, of course, especially in the sewage crisis. But we also have a housing crisis. We have a homelessness crisis. We have a crisis of access to mental health care and behavioral health care. So I want to make sure that we prioritize all of these issues while we continue to keep our community safe, just like I have been able to do in Imperial Beach. We're one of the safest coastal communities. We have been able to cut our homelessness population in half, all while not raising taxes and being able to reinvest our taxpayer dollars into the communities that we serve in the form of low cost or free recreational opportunities. So that is my vision for the county. And Ellen, as you well said, this is a vote that not just will represent District 1, but the county, the entire countywide. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. Yes, Carolina Chavez. I am a product of this very dynamic, very unique region. I grew up, just understanding what hard work means. I think that everything happens for a reason. And, my abuelitas, it's a very cultural thing, right? I think that, when you grow up with your abuelitos, your abuelitas, you hear the stories, you hear their fights. My grandfather was a strawberry field picker. And, he was also a bracero. He was in the bracero program. You just understand how in a disadvantage we are as in the get-go, right? My grandfather was always saying that he worked up to 16 hours and could not sleep laying down because his muscles wouldn't give. He had to sleep sitting down. He was only 14 years old when he was doing that, and he immigrated into this country. So, I'm running basically because Chula Vista, not just Chula Vista, but this region in general, right? District 1 in the county has been historically underrepresented. This past supervisor was the first diverse representative that we've had in the history of that seat. We've had many firsts, and it's very concerning that we still say that in this day of age. In the city of Chula Vista, for the first time in the history, I asked to raise the Pan-African flag for the first time in the history of Chula Vista. We didn't have a flag. They told me we don't have a flag. I'm like, well, you should go out and buy one as soon as possible because we're raising it. And, for the first time, we illuminated in with our Jewish brothers and sisters in the color of Israel as well, things that have been first. It's in this day and age, it's just ridiculous. I'm running because we need more representation, because District 1 has been historically underrepresented, and I, with 22 years of experience, can do just that. Thank you.
Again, our first question will be asked. Yes. Lilian Garcia-Rivera, resident B1. Thank you, JoAnn. Thank you, JoAnn.
Sorry. Thanks, JoAnn. So I'd like to ask the panelists, women-owned businesses are impacted by the high cost of supplies, rent, and increased wages. How do you plan to support women and small-owned businesses?
Thank you so much. Well, like JoAnn did mention, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Like JoAnn did mention, we as women are always in a disadvantage in many aspects, right? Not just in the workforce, right? As well, we are in a disadvantage in the way that not always we get the same access, the same opportunities, the same wages. We're historically underpaid. So there's many things to this, right? First of all, we need to create more programs that, reach in many languages these small businesses, right? Or people that are starting. People out of necessity have to work. So we also need to be really cognizant about childcare, right? Childcare right now is a luxury. You pay $1,500 for a child, and that keeps the parent at home. So, and we need to be doing more. And I had this discussion with my city manager as well. We have a great balance, a well balanced budget, and Chula Vista is thriving right now. And I've always mentioned that we need to do more to reach these first timers. We need to create first time programs for also our businesses, right? Our new the the parents that are working also from home, right? I've had a lot of people that say, hey, I want to start baking. I want to start, creating this and selling it online. And we have these workshops in the city that helps them, right? There's a lot of red tape, whoever you are, your gender, but there's a lot of red tape to get permitting, to get the information you need. That accessibility, we need to cut it. We need to cut it in general. And I think that we need to also see how we can bring holistic solutions to help them build up, right? Like JoAnn mentioned, women are historically the ones who carry their children. They're the pillars of the family. I lived it with my mom. My mom had a severe breast cancer. She battled breast cancer in 2013, and our whole foundation was shaken up. So they are the pillars, they are the love, and they're the encouragement. We need to do better as a society to create programs in the economic development sector to push forward any initiatives that they may have.
Thank you, Carolina. Mayor Aguirre?
Yes, thank you for that question. So I've proactively already been working on lowering utility bills. I currently chair the San Diego Community Power Alternative Electricity Agency, and we just recently lowered electricity rates by 3%. We have to make sure that we pay our workforce a livable wage. We have to make sure that we defend bedrock programs and funding like CalFresh and like Medicaid that are facing cuts. And being talked about as being eliminated, which is extremely concerning. I am someone with a demonstrated track record of being able to successfully advocate at the state and federal level for funding. I was, along with many others collectively, able to secure at least $600 million to upgrade the sewage treatment plant at the border that is now treating partly the sewage crisis. Now, it's why the United Domestic Workers are endorsing our campaign, because they understand that if you can't take care of children, if you can't take care of your elderly and disabled, the whole thing falls apart. We need to address the basics. Now, obviously, keeping a roof over your head is extremely important. It's something that we've addressed in the city of Imperial Beach. We have at the state level already rent stabilization that doesn't allow rents to go up more than 10% annually. But now we're seeing a phenomenon where people are getting evicted under the guise of renovation, right? Substantial remodeling in these homes. So then folks can then, unscrupulous landlords, not everybody, can increase the rates without limit. And that is displacing hundreds, if not thousands of families county-wide, hard-working families. So that's something we already addressed in the city of Imperial Beach just recently, where we at least give them the opportunity to land on their feet, where the landlords have to provide 2 months of rent so that they can find an alternative place to live, 3 months for elderly or disabled tenants. So that's something I'm interested in looking into in the unincorporated areas of the county, because obviously Imperial Beach, Chula Vista, and the city of San Diego already have these just cause ordinances. And to the question about small businesses, I mean, that's essential. A lot of these parents, mothers, are sustaining their family with micro enterprises, right? So we need to make sure that we continue to fund programs, we continue to fund nonprofits that uplift these types of activities and programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Aguirre. Elizabeth?
Thank you for your question. In addition to obviously removing the red tape that prevents a lot of small business owners from getting started, as well as addressing a lot of the inflammation a lot of people are dealing with, it's like, threatening homelessness, right? I want to specifically focus on how I would bolster women in small businesses to address your question. I'm a former educator. I have my master's degree in child development, so I understand that often children will take paths that they see themselves in. It's very important that these small women business owners are seen within their community so that that little girl who looks exactly like them sees them and goes, that can be my future. I could be a small business owner. I could be whomever, right? We know a lot of girls in the same way don't get into STEM because we don't see a lot of women scientists, right, being represented. Not to go off to Pluto, right, and skew away from the conversation, but that's one thing that I'm really passionate about is making sure that little girls have someone to look up to and they know that these people are in the community and they know who they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Councilmember Moreno?
Thank you. And I'll go back to the question, which was how am I going to help women in small businesses flourish? That's my understanding, right? Um, First of all, it's really difficult to be a woman in America, I think, just in general, given all the discrimination that occurs with women. We're still not getting paid the same as men, regardless of color. And if we're going to go into women of color, I know it gets worse. So let me just point that out. Now, having become a mom 2.5 years ago, it has just gotten tenfold more difficult. Um, when I get home, I can't rest and relax, right? I have a child that I have to look after, read books to, bathe, all that. Most women have children, and this is something that a lot of women in business have to deal with. So when they are starting up their business, their small business, sometimes they forget to do basic things, fictitious business names, pull licenses, very basic things that are necessities that if you were to go to a business person that helps other businesses, this would cost you $800 to $1,000, $800 to $1,000 to just pull these documents that we all know in this room cost a fraction of that price. So I've had small business events where I've partnered up with Logan Heights CDC and other small nonprofits to make sure that our businesses in our community know that they do have to pull a fictitious business name. And guess what? You have to put it in the newspaper for 4 weeks. Don't forget that part. And you have to pull licenses. So we've been having those events in my district already. And like I said, I've worked with Logan Heights CDC. We funded various CDCs, helping them reach out, go door to door and reach out to our small businesses. Also, the Small Business Administration, all the loans and grants that they have, we have made sure that our community knows that these loans and grants are available by providing these events for them. They were in partnership with us with our small business event. And to me, my life's work has been about getting services and making sure our residents know about them. I think that's been the basic ethos of what I've done as an elected official, is bringing services to my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next question, please.
So we know that many San Diegans are living paycheck to paycheck and, they're on the verge of becoming unsheltered. There's a lot of problems associated with the homeless community and how they affect the neighborhoods that are, especially around downtown, where all of the services are at. I'm really concerned about women and families, children that are homeless. What are your plans to provide affordable housing specifically for this segment of the homeless community?
If I may, we'll start with Elizabeth and Councilmember.
I specifically would want to focus on women's shelters. I know they're out there. There's plenty of nonprofit women's shelters out there that specifically address this issue that could possibly use more funding and more investment. I would want to do a lot of community outreach and figure out exactly how we can bolster these women and the children and figure out why they ended up homeless in the first place. A lot of the times is maybe the rent's too high. And like you said, we are living paycheck to paycheck. I personally know what it's like to have 4 roommates and work 2 jobs and still be worried that I'm not going to make rent. It's really difficult to deal with. So one of the first things I would do would definitely be community outreach and figure out which nonprofits are really getting it done and make sure that I can further fund and invest in those. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Moreno?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. When it comes to homelessness, the county has absolutely left unsheltered folks behind. They're sitting on $200 million of funding specifically for this population. And obviously, we know that the state provides the funding to the county. So one of the things, my intention as a supervisor is to make sure that we, as supervisors, are at the helm of this discussion. For many years, the supervisors have left this up to mayors. And if you think about the city of IB with 36,000 people, that's compared to the city of San Diego with 1.3 million people. It's unfair to ask the city of IB to deal with this issue, especially when they're not getting the direct services, money, essentially. So as your next supervisor, my intention is to take this issue head on. There's various reasons why people fall into homelessness, right? It could be, you have mental health issues like schizophrenia or bipolarism. It could be that you're leaving a domestic violence situation and you and your kids are now living in a car. It could be, just the list goes on and on of why people actually go into homelessness. And we need to address this, right? If you want to detox right now as an unsheltered individual, there's 78 beds for you that the county has. That to me is ridiculous. The county should be at the helm of this. It should be, and once again, bringing together folks from our educational institutions, from our hospitals, all the cities, all the nonprofit providers, and really address this issue head on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Aguirre?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Well, first and foremost, we need to make sure that we provide opportunities for people to be housed or temporarily housed. There's been many missed opportunities, not just at the county, but at the city of San Diego level, like with safe parking sites, with safe camping sites that have been shot down. As a South Bay mayor, I know that responsibility, the burden of carrying that responsibility in our shoulders. I work closely with the South Bay mayors, and we have these conversations constantly about how the county has totally left us behind as far as leadership, as far as advocacy, as far as resources. And I think that you need to demonstrate where your values are. And if you truly care about getting people housed, getting them the wraparound services that they need to get out of whatever critical situation or acute situation they may have, whether it's a mental health crisis, addiction, or temporarily just out of luck and weren't able to pay their rent and they need shelter, then you need to give those options and you need to put your money where your mouth is. And I don't think that has happened at the county level. There's been many missed opportunities. Now, there's been opportunities to put county-funded safe camping sites that haven't happened. There's been opportunities to partner with health institutions, with academic institutions receiving state funding that we lost because there wasn't that leadership present, and we all know what we're talking about. And I think that we need to invest in these types of opportunities. We need to invest in the programs as well, because we have left money on the table. Just last year alone, we left $160 million that could have gone to brick and mortar projects for housing to address homelessness. In Imperial Beach, we just approved a project that will house 50 seniors and we'll have mental health care wraparound services. And we've been able to reduce our homeless population by 50% because we've put the investment and the resources and the time and the dedication where we get our staff to go out 3 times per week and do follow-up with each of them individually, That's how we've been able to place them into permanent housing and programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Aguirre. Vice Mayor Chavez?
I don't think there's any wrong answers that have been given on this table. Everything that's pro housing is good, right? We have many issues going on. People think that you have to be in a dire situation to be unhoused, and that's not true. You could be two pages away from being unhoused at all economic levels. That's what people don't understand. As a young child that grew up with a dad that was bedridden, he was the main source of income, right? We also dealt with, hiding from the landlord sometimes. And I was very young and didn't understand it, right? We need to be empathetic with the needs of everyone, right? What they're going to, the resources that are available to them. How are we communicating with our community? For our elderly community, their paychecks, their social security is not covering the cost of living anymore, right? They have to look elsewhere. What are they going to do? They can't pay property taxes. They can't pay for with this check. It's not enough for them to live here. Let's talk about truth, right? And number one, a lot of people are leaving the county. A lot of people are going south of the border to look for housing. Let's talk about truths, right? It's not just we have a big mental health crisis. We have a big mental health crisis, yes. But also we have a lot of individuals that just have different issues, right? One of them is, and I walking the point in time count at 3 a.m., you talk to people and, some of them say, well, my whole life I've had this, the 5 years that I've been unsheltered, I have this grocery cart that has my entire life in it. And, sometimes they didn't accept me with the storage. So we helped them reach their necessities, right? I'm partner up. I can't sleep with my partner. I have a dog, but they have to stay in the kennel. That's my family. So we have to address every single issue. And yesterday we got asked the question at whose responsibility the unsheltered were. And on Caltrans land, right? Next to the freeways. And it's our responsibility as elected officials, as county representatives, we need to advocate. We're bridge builders, right? We need to advocate for federal and state funding. And when we get it, the $10 million that was left on the table that was going to housing for Spring Valley, we need to use it because it went to San Jose. We need to be passionate and straightforward with what our county, our district needs. It's an historically underrepresented district. We need to step up and fight for our community and fight for our community members that are also our community members, our shelter population. And we need to act fast.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next, we have our president of the Black American Political Association of California, San Diego. We have President Ellen Nash. And would you please share your two questions for our panel?
Wow, we've had some excellent young women here today that are powerful leaders in this community. And one question I have, but just before I ask it, JoAnn.
Will we be asking why you qualified for this position? Okay,
so I want to ask that question. So I'll get right to it. I represent and amplify the voices of the African-American community here in San Diego. And given redistricting, District 1 now has a stronger representation of African-Americans that live here. And also the migration of African-Americans that want to live in District 1 is at an all-time high. My daughter aspires to live in East Lake and Otay Lakes and areas like that. I'm mad at her because we were born and raised in Southeast San Diego, Vivian, but she wants to live in East Lake, and all of her friends and all of them, and some of them do. Yeah, yes, exactly. I get upset about it, but that's their wishes. The other option is that they will move out of San Diego altogether, which is horrible. So given the African American representation here in District 1, I'm really here to amplify their voices by asking, number one, what is your plan with regard to your staffing? Will it represent African Americans? Number two, if you can talk about your plans in terms of ensuring that you have a diverse staff. Number three, in regards to contracting, the businesses, the redevelopment that's going on here. What's your plans to make sure you include African Americans, but particularly people of color, in those particular opportunities?
Thank you for your question, Ellen. So that's 3 in 1. And so we'll give you a few more minutes to answer the 3 questions, but they're all tied in with representation, as far as having African American representation, but also the diversity on staff, but also in contracting, and making sure that there's funding for programs that will address specific community issues. So we'll go ahead and start with Councilmember Moreno and then Elizabeth.
Thank you. Number one, we absolutely will have an African American on staff. Thank you for asking that question. I am the only candidate that has the endorsement of Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp, and I always say that wasn't given, that was earned. She got to see and work next to me for 5 years, so we got to really know each other, and I think it speaks volumes as she's been known as the People's Council member, right? I'll let her have that one. But you know, it was very clear to me. Obviously, my district is a district that was an African American community 40, 50 years ago, especially given all of the churches, the AMEs and the Baptist churches. We have the oldest Baptist church, Calvary Baptist Church, in our district. So right away, one of the first things is collaboration with a lot of those churches. A lot of the churches are sitting on land that they want to develop, and I have absolutely encouraged them to develop. Housing is what they're looking to develop primarily, and also not only housing, but just housing for our folks in the unsheltered population. So obviously we welcome and we aided them in that effort. The Cooper Family Foundation also, I've been a huge supporter of their Juneteenth event. Before it was this awesome music festival, right? When we were still in Imperial Avenue, giving out hot dogs, and which you get a free meal if you go to that event. But the question that you asked was about contracting. And I think a lot of folks are falling really short when it comes to contracting with BIPOC people of color, African American women businesses. And I will point out to one agency that actually is doing a very good job, and that's Sandag when it comes to contracting. So I feel like, and we just got a report recently about subcontracting out. And sometimes these contracts we put them out and they're so massive that it's hard for, especially with insurance, for some of these smaller businesses to bid on them. So we need to break down the contracts, and we need to also hold seminars in the community, not just, after hours, not at 12 p.m. When people are working. So you have my commitment that is something that I absolutely will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Elizabeth?
Thank you for your question. Absolutely. Absolutely. I would want to diversify my staff. I would want them to best represent San Diego and how diverse it is, of course. So that includes welcoming African Americans onto my staff, as well as contracting them as well, right? And their businesses. I would want to do that research so that I can just bolster marginalized communities more and reach out to them, know who they are, know what services they provide so that I can select those services and prioritize that. It's very important to me to bolster marginalized communities. I know that it's a lot easier for me to just close my eyes and pick the ones that we've always been picking. This takes a very intentional effort, and I'm willing and committed to making that intentional effort. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mayor Aguirre?
Yes, thank you for the question. So I also commit to bringing on board an African American staff. I mentioned that yesterday, API. We need to make sure that we bring on people that are extremely well qualified, but that also have the lived experience of the communities that we are representing. It's extremely important because without that lived experience, there's opportunities for blind spots. And I've seen it over and over again. It's important to use data-driven decision making. So we have agencies that collect that data that have been mentioned. We also have departments at the county that are collecting that data, like the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And we need to make sure that we find the areas of need so that we can make the necessary investments in those areas of need. We need to hear from community. I am very big on a grassroots community driven approach. So I'm not someone that will come and tell you what to do. I want the community to tell us what needs to be done. And in order to do that, you consult with the groups that have been doing the work in the community already, that have ideas that you can help implement and do partnerships. I'm a very collaborative type of person, and I think I've demonstrated that in many different ways. So I would reach out to other groups like the Black Chamber of Commerce and other groups that are already doing the work that we could help leverage each other's efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor Chavez?
So I mean, I'm going to start with a phrase that I said yesterday as well. My mom always told me, right? God doesn't recognize the color of your skin, your race, or your sex, right? We're all equal. So what we need to be looking for are people that are well qualified to represent the community, right? People that are well qualified to bring this access and address these needs of the community. I have one staffer in Chula Vista. He's Mexican Filipino. I tried to steal I tried to steal him away. I did steal him away from Raul Campillo. I think that, we need to be, again, there's no wrong answers here, right? You have very willingful candidates that are ready to incorporate, and that's what's needed, right? We need to fight against the system because right now we're under attack, and we're under attack from the federal government that wants to quiet our voices, not just women, but the diversity, inclusion programs. They want to quiet us. They want to defund us. And that's the main thing that we need to fight against. I mean, my track record is working across the board with everyone on all levels of government. Just in Juneteenth, I think a year and a half, 2 years ago, the Black Chamber of Commerce, the state Black Chamber of Commerce called me up and said, hey, we don't understand the manufacturing that's going on right across the border. Can you show that to us? And I had a big bus come down, and we gave them a tour, and we told them about international trade, and we told them about what's going on, the economy, and how we could be a resource to them, right? This border that we have right next to us, a couple of minutes from us, produces $60 billion in international trade. So again, in my representation in this district, it's all about who's the best qualified. I put my money where my mouth is, right? I already have this one diverse staff member, but you have to be cognizant of who you're representing and who can connect better. And also, I mean, it's about being a loud voice to fight. Right now, we are going to be under attack. The federal government does not understand the uniqueness of our region, does not understand it, and does not care. Let's be truthful. They don't care, right? So we need to be loud. We need to procure funds. We need to open more programs, and we need to be accessible to the people that need these resources, regardless of anything.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Our next question will be asked by our president of the Ahahui of Hawaii, San Diego, Moana Alo.
Aloha, ladies. Thank you so much for this wonderful information. My question for you is, as given the current political climate that we're in, it's not great. There are budget cuts across the board on all levels of government. How do we, or what are your top three priorities to keep funding intact?
You need a second. So again, federal level, we know we are expecting budget cuts. And right now, the budget is being discussed. What are the three priorities that you have to ensure that programs and services are intact? What are your top three? And we will start with Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you for the question. We're in an I keep on thinking about my brother who was in the Navy for 4 years, right? He was stationed in Point Mugu, and he works for the VA right now. And he received one of the letters. So I keep on thinking about him. And San Diego is absolutely a Navy town, right? A military town. And a lot of those folks have worked or are working for the federal government. So it pains me to know that they've all received a letter. And just how do we as a supervisor, how do we battle that when it's at the federal level and we really don't have any decisions, is something that I think my political brain clicks in. And I think that we as elected officials, especially Democratic elected officials, should start targeting some of the Congress people that are potentially going to vote for some of the things that are on the chopping block that will impact the county. Medicaid, right? That's on the chopping block. 65% cuts. What are we going to do when Medicaid funds a lot of the programs that the county has? So once again, the first thing in my brain is let's get political. Let's go to the South. Let's run campaigns against some of these Congress people. We still have to see them vote, right? We still have to watch their vote. So number one is getting political. The other part is, as I mentioned, the county does have a very large reserve in their coffers. So it's about time that we start spending some of those reserves, especially if we're going to get hit by our federal government attacking us. The other thing that I think we need to get the other thing that's really interesting to me about California is that we're a donor state. So we actually give the federal government more than we receive, which really, I mean, I don't know, we're not going to secede, right? But we probably could. I mean, I'm not advocating for that. We are the fifth largest nation of the whole world, or fifth largest economy of the whole world. I'm not an advocate of that. But certainly I think we need to look at ways in our federal system, how maybe we can change the rules to keep more of the funding, right? More of the funding back. Obviously, I'm not a congressperson. I wouldn't even know how to start that. How do we even begin looking at that? But at the end of the day, as a council member, it has been, a few mayors have proposed cuts that would be very detrimental to my community. Cuts such as park and rec programming, library hours, those types of cuts that may not mean a lot for folks north of the 8 because they could pay karate and they could pay dance class, while my kids, their parents can't. Right, most of our parents are working. My mom at Jack in the Box will work 14-hour days. And so these services are very much needed in our community. And I have fought back all of those cuts. And we have been successful in not allowing those cuts to go through, which will have a dire impact. I mean, cutting the library hours is ridiculous to me. So I will bring that forward in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Elizabeth.
Thank you for your question. I suppose my priorities stem from the fact that I do have my degrees in child development. So I am most concerned about, are you safe? Are you getting your needs met? Can you continue on to the next day, basically, right? And so my top priorities is addressing homelessness in this county, as well as financial insecurity. It comes from all directions. And thirdly, I am very interested in looking at the budget for infrastructure, whether it's the pipeline, whether it's just looking to how energy is dispersed in our community. We're hit with inflation, but a lot of our infrastructure is failing us. So how are we paying these premium prices for a subpar experience that often results in people getting unhoused? Like, look at the flood that happened, right? That happened because of infrastructure. I know California was in a drought for quite some time. It's not that case anymore. We need to be able to endure the rains, right? Without losing our homes, without dealing with the mold that is making people sick. And if we want to talk about getting sick, let's talk about the pipeline. How many low-income communities are failing to get their medical needs met when they're getting sick from sewage? Like, that's your safety, that's your health, that's your well-being. And those are my 3 top priorities. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mayor Aguirre?
Yes, thank you for that question. So obviously the Congress is led by Republicans right now, the House, the Senate, the executive branch, the judiciary branch. Very clearly, they're going to have their priorities and they're going to go forward regardless of whether we like that or not. I've worked in Congress. I spent a whole year working for Senator Cory Booker, so I truly understand how the legislative process works. Now, I also have demonstrated a track record of working across the aisle with Republican colleagues to secure necessary funding, because when we have needs, sometimes they're not partisan, they're not Republican, they're not Democrat, they're not independent, when they're basic needs. So I have that demonstrated track record of advocating and being successful at it. However, you have to have a plan B and you have to have a plan C. So let's say that Medicaid is going to be cut or there's going to be other cuts, then we have to turn to the state. The state has resources. We know that CalFresh is our main source of funding for child care, and without a proper and thorough child care, the entire system can fall apart. People lose productivity, aren't able to go to work. We reduce our economic flow. So I think it's incredibly important to make sure that we continue to work at the state level so that we get the necessary resources and none of that gets cut. But at the end of the day, we have the responsibility and the oversight of an $8.2 billion budget at the county. And we have $2.4 billion in reserves. So the conservative policies that have driven our reserves are of 10, 20, 30 years ago. We need to make sure that we take a second look at them so that we can, in these trying times, right, where bedrock programs and funding is under threat of being chopped, we're going to have to take a second look at that. And we're also going to have to take a second look at how we're spending, how efficient and how effective our spending is. Where are we bleeding out resources? Where can we invest resources in a more effective way? And what funding are we leaving on the table? Like I mentioned an example earlier, the $160 million that were left on the table last year. That's just one example of many. So I'm going to prioritize making sure that we address our unsheltered population, because that has tremendous ecosystemic ramifications, right? Systemic ramifications. The sewage crisis is something that is incredibly impacting us very detrimentally in South County. Our health, our children's health, our immunocompromised, our elderly are not able to even breathe. So we need to make sure that we get the medical interventions and we stop the pollution at the source. And lastly, we need to make sure that we keep people housed. And that's incredibly important. And that's something that we can have a very prominent role at the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor Chavez?
First of all, I want to start off by saying that there's a reason why your child wants to come to Eastlake. We're the safest incorporated city in the county. Yes, we are. So, and we have everything. Look at us. It's Chavez is great. We're creating a lot more jobs, and it's great to live here. And everyone's friendly. Look at us, how friendly we are. No, I just want to mention that, like I said previously, right? This is an uphill battle, and we need a representative that's going to fight for what's right. They're going to try to defund us to make us fall into line, right? That's what happens. They try to take away the money. The first 100 days, the first day I'm in office, I'm going to ask for an audit. It's impossible that with over $8 million in a budget that we're going into a deficit. Chula Vista has a very well-balanced budget, right? And that goes volumes into many, many issues that we have. Sustainable living also looks like childcare, right? All this accessibility with housing, rent. It's everything as a whole, right? And we need to create these programs and these platforms. We are the bridge builders. We are the shields of the city, and we're not doing enough as a city to protect these programs. Like it was mentioned, and I mentioned also earlier, we're feeding so much, 60 billion just in international trade, and we're getting what, over $1 billion from the federal government. I mean, we need to do better. We need to advocate a little better, and we need to work with all levels of government to have them understand what's going on here, because they're so far away from this region that forget about caring. They just don't know. It's pure ignorance. We have such a unique factor of what's going on here locally that we need to do a better job advocating and raising our voices. So that's, first of all, at a local level, we need to do an audit, because the taxpayers deserve to know why we're driving the county into a deficit. And we need to see what programs have worked and haven't. And we need to get back to the basics. The basic issues are feeling safe in your home, your kids walking safely to school, having food on your table, having a roof over your head, and helping our shelter population. Those are the basic necessities, and we need to scream even harder. The crisis, if this crisis, sewage crisis, was happening anywhere else in the nation, it would have been fixed like that. It's not a lack of resource, it's a lack of will. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We are coming to the close of our International Women's Day online candidate forum. But before we go, I have one question, and then we'll ask in your closing remarks, tell us why you are qualified for this position. Thank you, Ellen, for asking the question. But there is one more question we have from the community. But I am mindful that one of our candidates has a hard stop, 3:30, then 3:45, 4 o'clock, and in between, Elizabeth, we can talk all day. But the candidate that has to leave at 3:30, I'm going to ask you the question, then you can give your closing remark. So I'll give you 3 minutes for that. Then we'll move on to our next person that has a hard stop, 3:45, but we're going to not get more than 10 minutes each, so 3 each, so that we'll go down the road. Yes. And if you are now just tuning in, and you can start from the beginning, this will stay live on social media. What we have started is our discussion on International Women's Day. It's an online candidates forum for trying to reach out to our voters that may not step into an in-person candidates forum, but we want to have an informed voter, because this is a very important election. Every election is important, but what's at stake are county services that will impact our quality of life, because they are in charge of the Health and Human Services Agency that has over $1 billion budget. We also have other support systems through the county where we need a representative that hears our needs. And what you have heard today came from Lilian Garcia-Rivera, resident of Sherman Heights, the president of BAPAC, the Black American Political Association of California, San Diego, Ellen Nash, our president of the Ahahui of San Diego, Moana, and then myself with the API initiative. We are representative of the whole District 1. We want to ask one last question, because it does relate to the floods that we as a community suffered in January 2024. 1,000 families are still displaced. Many of them are from District 1. And our question to our candidates is, what are your, will you commit to long-term recovery for those impacted by the January 22nd, 2024 flood disaster in San Diego? And what are your plans for future disaster preparedness, and the inclusion of community input, because we were very reactionary. They said that was a 100-year flood, but how do we prepare? Because we know that we've been in crisis. We've been in crisis during COVID, we were in crisis during the flood, and we were reacting. And it was very slow when it came to our communities of color, whether it was in language, whether it was access to programs, support services, and just regular funding for the boots on the ground through our community-based organizations. So please share with us your commitment and then your closing remark, because I know you have a hard stop, Carolina, at 3:30. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity to talk a little bit about this. We need to stop being reactive, right? We're in the business of taking care of our community, of being mindful of what would create a huge impact in their lives. Number one, we need to do better as city, county, state representatives, right? We need to do better in assuring that they don't need to think about the consequences, that we upkeep with the taxpayer money all these issues from happening and getting to this emergency state. I fully commit to supporting these families. They should have never been put in this situation. In Chula Vista, we didn't have this, obviously. You saw on the news, but Bonita did, right? And again, there's so many unincorporated areas that have lacked representation, right? And we were there, right? District 1, my district, collides with them, and we were right there helping them. Again, it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of will, right? You need to be on top of it as the city representative. You need to understand where your efficiencies and deficiencies are as a city, right? And look for the solutions before it happens, before it's too late. And also, I am going to say it, we need to have accountability with the insurances. The insurances were dropping people. Oh, because you live in a flood zone. Oh, because you live in a fire zone. We need to fight a better fight against these insurances. You can't have people homeless that are still hurting because their insurance didn't cover it, or no one's fighting for them, right? We need to go back. We have a very robust budget, and we need to go back and, okay, learn from the mistakes and make sure it never, ever happens again. This is your foundation. This is your life. This is where your kids live and sleep. And this potentially could have been fatal for many. And it was for many. So I want to make sure that before I leave this forum, I make this commitment, and it's loud and clear. We need to fight, and we need to step ahead of the problem before it happens. This is unacceptable, and there should be accountability as well. We have the cost of living is incredible. And for your taxpayer money not working for you should be held accountable as well. Our city representatives, our county representatives, and anyone should be held accountable always. Should I do my closing statement? Well, again, right? I'm running because District 1 has been historically underrepresented. 2 years ago, I was sitting as a board member on MTS representing Chula Vista. Now I'm the representative at SANDAG, the Association of Governments in San Diego, and I represent Chula Vista, the second largest city in the county. And they were talking about MTS and why we didn't have enough ridership. And sometimes common sense is a luxury. They were talking about, we're sending, people north to work, right? The blue line's the most transited line in the county. And in La Jolla, we have all these trolley systems that are brand new, that are elevated, gorgeous. The most transited line in the county, the blue line, I'm going to say it, it's smelly, it's not taken care of, and until very recently, it wasn't really staffed. So we need to do better in listening. We did a focus group, and we learned that people feel unsafe. And it haunts me to this day that mothers said, I can run, but my kids can't. I was that little girl, young girl, that used to ride the trolley, and I would wake up and say, maybe I should wear walking shoes, maybe not a skirt, maybe an overcoat, because I used it out of necessity. It's not a luxury. People are using this transit because of necessity. And we need to think holistically what we're doing for the community. It's common sense to have them feel safe, to have more recurring transit, reliable transit. And yes, we recently opened the 910 because after 11:30, we didn't have public transportation going south. So we send all the workers north, and how are we getting them back south? So from 12:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m., they're getting this 910 back south. So it's just a lot of common sense. I'm running because I have 22 years of experience, because I want to do as much good in the little time that we are here in this world, like my grandmother used to say, because God put me on this path. As easy as that. I have a track record of working across the board with everyone from federal, state to municipal government on both sides of the border. I represent a large foundation with over 30 orphanages as well. I over a decade in healthcare. I just, we need to find solutions, but people that hit the ground running, because by July, we're going to have over 7 months of not having representation in a historically underrepresented district. Let's be mindful of that. Again, Carolina Chavez, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Chavez, and thank you again for joining us. And we hope you have safe travels to your next event. This will not be the last that we hear from you. Next, we have our Mayor of Imperial Beach, Paloma-Aguire. If you would answer the question on commitment to those that have suffered the consequences of the January 2024 floods. And if you would also deliver your closing remarks.
Sure. So thank you for that question. That tragedy should never have happened. It was neglect. It was lack of maintenance. It was deferred maintenance. It was disinvestment, decades of disinvestment in communities primarily of color that have been historically already disenfranchised. I've gone and met with the residents there. Yes, indeed, there's over 1,000 families that haven't been rehomed. There's a lot of need. There's people living in trailers next to areas that are still muddy, that are being exposed to mold. So it's something very personal to me, because I understand being neglected and disinvested in and forgotten, disenfranchised, because the communities in South Bay have been disinvested, disenfranchised, and forgotten about around the sewage crisis. Yes, so with this particular crisis, my commitment is 100%. I have already made that commitment personally to them. That should never have happened. I think that there were a lot of missed opportunities, both by the city of San Diego and by the county. There is not a cohesive approach. There wasn't a cohesive approach to get the aid after the fact. There wasn't a cohesive approach to collect the data and make informed decisions, which is also quite concerning. And this is not a matter of if this will happen again. It's a matter of when, because it will, because we're experiencing climate change at a faster, accelerated pace. So the 100-year storm is going to become the norm. The droughts are going to become the norm. The wildfires are going to become the norm. And as a mayor of a city who's experienced an emergency, a boil water advisory resulting of Tropical Storm Hillary, we didn't get the leadership, the person at the wheel from California, from the County Office of Emergency Services. It was a discombobulated response. So it's very clear to me that we need somebody at the wheel that can do a systemic approach, working with each of the individual cities with the resources at the county, so that they could have a concerted effort around wildfires, around flooding, around boil water advisories related to E. coli positive drinking water supply, as it happened to us in Imperial Beach. And that is first and foremost what I think needs to happen. And I know that's been echoed by some experts in the field as well. Now, regarding the second question, why am I qualified for this position? I already lead an agency that serves over 1 million people. That is a $1 billion agency. We've been very successful, as I mentioned in the beginning, lowering people's electricity rates. I'm also the vice chair of the California Coastal Commission, which is a statewide agency that deals with development projects. We've approved over 1,000 housing units, including workforce units, senior housing units, and affordable housing units. As mayor of Imperial Beach, I have taken it upon myself to advocate beyond my residents of Imperial Beach because of the vacuum of leadership that these communities have experienced in Nestor, in San Isidro, in the Tijuana River Valley, in South Chula Vista, and now all the way up to National City around the toxic hydrogen sulfide gases that our families are choking on and going to the hospital for. We have residents in the Tijuana River Valley that have gone to the hospital because they can't breathe. So I have that demonstrated track record of leading even when it's not my jurisdiction or my job or my constituents. So it's why I have the support of the entire National City Council. I have the support of mayors from Oceanside to Del Mar to Solana Beach to Lemon Grove to La Mesa. I have the support of the two largest county union workers, UDW and SEIU 221. I have the support of the Democratic Party. I'm the endorsed candidate for the Democratic Party and Labor Council. And most recently, I've been endorsed by the San Diego Union Tribune. So I'm someone who will hit the floor running when it comes to a difficult situation that we're entering, where we're having attacks from the White House, where our immigrant communities are at risk of having their rights violated. We need somebody that not only has the political will, but the political courage to do what's right and to fight for the communities that haven't been fought for in a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Aguirre. Next, we have Elizabeth, our affordable energy consultant. Thank you, Elizabeth, again for joining us. And please answer the question on the commitment of assisting our January 2024 flood survivors, and also how do we prevent that? What are the preventative measures that you will plan on organizing so that we are not reactive, but rather proactive? And your closing remarks, please.
I think it's exactly that, is we need to address our framework and where we're coming from. We need to be more proactive rather than reactive. And I'm going to get into a little bit of that first. We at this such a high level, right? We should have been able to predict some virus. You know, we may not have been able to predict that COVID was coming, but leading experts at the time said we were overdue for a massive pandemic. We should have saw that coming. Likewise, we can track weather patterns. We talk about climate change all the time. We know that these things are changing. We know what's coming to California. We should have been prepared. We should have prevented these things from happening. The storm drains being overflowed and flooded, it's unacceptable. We should have known that these rains were coming because of how drastic of a shift we've been seeing in California, right? So one of the things I would commit to is making sure that not only is our data accurate, but we're using it for the right reasons to make sure that the community is properly supported. Not everybody has access to this data, and not everybody has access to the preventative measures that are necessary. That's our job, right? At this high level, right? It is our job to be in the know, and it is our job to take these things into consideration. So I would commit to that as well. You heard earlier I was talking about how I am very passionate about addressing the issues with infrastructure. I think it's unsatisfactory. I think a lot of people are getting sick. A lot of people are being unhomed, and it's absolutely unacceptable. And I guess I can move on to the closing statement, change tones for a second. One of the reasons why I believe I am qualified is because I'm here. You know I'm 27. I know I'm one of the younger candidates, and this is one of the first candidacies that I've ever attempted, right? I'm here. I'm brave enough to take on what is scary. It is absolutely intimidating to be sitting next to a council member a mayor and deputy mayor at the same time. These women are absolutely wonderful at what they do. They are highly regarded and deeply respected, and I look up to them, of course, but I'm here. I'm here to let young folks know that, the first step is taking action. It's easy to sit behind a phone screen. It's so easy to share on social media and be like, well, I think this person, blah, 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 blah. I think this issue, blah, 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 blah. But what am I doing? Like I was in the streets when, for Black Lives Matter, I was out there, but what else am I doing as a 27-year-old? Like my fist in the air is only going to do so much, right? So let's address the activism. Let's encourage people to just run. Just do it. Just try it. Just see how far you can go. Ask yourself, what can I do? And start from there. And that's what I'm doing. Thank you so much for your questions. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for hosting.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you for the question.
Councilmember Moreno.
I will start by 1000%. My commitment is to my community. Southcrest was actually a community that belonged to Rivera. And 2 years before the floods, with redistricting, I received Southcrest. From day one, that the Beta Street Storm Channel was absolutely on my budget request. Those are facts. I could show you receipts. We have been demanding that channel be cleared out. It was absolutely devastating. I mean, I was there, the next day, a few days after, and we organized cleanups. We had the carpenters, Layuna, every single council member went out there. The chief went out there to help clean up. I personally took a woman, one of the leaders of the community, to go and get her medication. She had a heart surgery a year before. She hadn't taken her meds for days. I personally took her to the Red Cross, then to Kaiser eventually, to get her meds that cost $140. We got them for free. Look, there was $15 million of FEMA money, $24 million of city staff time. Local assistance center was set up in Mountain View. We set up 4 donation sites. We established 3 evacuation centers. The city allocated about $3 million of San Diego Commission housing money. The county allocated money for folks to go and get housed in a hotel. It wasn't enough. It absolutely was not enough. And that's why there currently is an audit that I commissioned as the auditor, as the chair of the audit committee, to see what the response was. How was the response? How did we respond compared to other cities for best practices? Because we do not want that to happen again. Also, the Beta Street Storm Channel and Storm Drain Capital Improvement Project is coming forward. They will be having meetings in the community addressing how they will fix the channel, the inlets, everything that they're going to be doing. Community Groundworks, you guys all know them. Leslie Reynolds, she's going to be leading the charge in regards to that outreach. Flood channel maintenance continues to happen. Just the other day when it was raining, I left Barrio Station. I left their annual dinner to go check on Beta to see how the water was flowing, to make sure it was good, because we know that Birch and Beta were the epicenter of it. So 1000%, you have my commitment for the folks, because it wasn't just in Southcrest, right? It was the whole channel. There was D4 and D9 residents that were impacted by this 100-year flood. So yes, you have my commitment. As a council member to the city of San Diego's District 8, it's been an absolute honor to represent my community. Pound for pound, I don't think there's another elected official in the South Bay that could talk about or that could match the work that I've done. We're building 3 parks in my community. We refurbished 5. We purchased land for a fire station up in Otay Mesa. We've built 2,500 homes. 750 are affordable in San Isidro alone. We've built out La Media Road, a city road that really is an international road, where 4,000 trucks take American product down to Mexico to get assembled and be brought back. So think of Bose, think of Tacoma, Those are the types of that. So that road, we built it. I asked the California Transportation Commission for $22.7 million. We did it in our office. And so this election really feels like 2018 for me as a city council member, much like Monica Montgomery Steppe, where we didn't have the Democratic Party, we didn't have labor. In that time, I didn't have really anybody but David Alvarez and Mary Salas. That's the only people I had that were really supporting me. I walk doors. This is what we do. We're walking doors, we're knocking, we're letting folks know about who Vivian Moreno is and what she stands for. She was raised in Chula Vista. I was raised in Chula Vista. My parents purchased their home when I was 14 in Rancho del Rey. After having gone to 9 different schools. Los Altos, I went to. John Otis, I went to. Lincoln Acres, Valley Vista, Rosebank. I went to a lot of schools. Eventually, I graduated from Discovery Elementary. Second graduating class of Discovery Elementary, Bonita Vista Middle. I am born and bred in the South Bay. I am a product of the South Bay. My family and I know what the South Bay needs and how much it's been forgotten. So yeah, I do have Assembly Member David Alvarez. I have former Mayor Mary Salas, Supervisor Monica Montgomery Steppe, the Chula Vista Dems, laborers, carpenters, but really it's Vivian Moreno in her 2 feet and all the folks that are walking door to door as we speak right now. I would be walking right now. I walked 96 doors yesterday. I was walking right before this. It really is about grassroots politics. These women here, they're not my enemy. Paloma and Carolina were at my bridal shower. I consider them friends. They're not the enemy. We know who the enemy is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a good, solid, clean campaign where I talk about the things that I have done for my community. I'm not going to knock them down. Why would I knock another woman down? Why would I do that in this International Women's Day? Absolutely not. Not Vivian Moreno. Because when I lay my head on the pillow, I have to fall asleep with my brain. I have a mom that's going to tell me, hey, ¿qué estás haciendo? Pórtate bien. And that's why I'm going to get elected as supervisor. And I look forward to working with everybody in this room and helping build us women in this room and beyond. As I started, this is about my 2.5-year-old daughter, Michelle. This is why I'm doing this. This is why we do, us moms, that's why we do everything that we do, is for our children and the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moreno. And I appreciate all of you talking about accountability. I want to invite you to meet with the Harvey Family Foundation. If you have not yet, please do. Especially meet with Armand and the CFO, Clarissa Marin. What I really appreciate is the accountability of showing every house what's the status of their rebuild. Is it permitting? Is it getting the supplies? Where are they at? We need that type of accountability. We at the API initiative, we were trying to assist folks. And I don't want to be in that position ever again, trying to figure out which family should get assistance because there isn't enough money. And then how do you choose? There was a man, his story broke me down. He's a single father of 2 young girls in a hotel. The San Diego Housing Commission offered them $14,000 to get into a place. But what is $14,000 going to get you in today's economy with the rental? It's only going to last so much, and then you get re-traumatized again. So it's not post-traumatic stress because it's not post, it's ongoing. So please work with the boots on the ground for the accountability, accept the community input because we are the boots on the ground. We are the ones hearing from our elders telling me, can you please take me to Alpha Project? What? The 72-year-old Lola is staying in the 10th on 10th and J? Are you kidding me? Everyone thinks that we don't have a problem until it hits home. It might not be a family member, but it might be a neighbor. It might be our kid's classmate. So please reach out to our communities. I appreciate you spending your time. We appreciate you spending your time and sharing your answers. We look forward to working with all of you, because it doesn't stop at the election. Only one will come out, but you're still charged with representing the community at whatever capacity you're at. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being a breath of fresh air. We look forward to what's in the near future for you. But the near future for all of us, okay, I got my pamphlet here. Register of voters, you're going to see this logo in your mail. The mail ballots are coming out tomorrow, or no, Monday. We expect it on Monday. So if you're not registered to vote, you're not going to receive the packet. But guess what? If you're a D1 resident and are qualified to vote, you can register to vote at the Registrar of Voters office, or you can go to sdvote.com and still try to register online. They also have a list of where you can register to vote. You can go to a voting center. The day of of voting, the deadline is Tuesday, April 8th. So there's more ways and days to go out and vote. Take advantage of the opportunity. It's an opportunity. So please don't complain to me. Don't go calling them after the fact. We didn't get this, but did you vote? That's the question. Did you vote? Did your household vote? Did your neighbors vote? And you don't even have to pay for postage when they mail out the ballot. The postage is already paid. You even get your I voted sticker in the packet. So I used to wait for that. You don't have to wait for that. It comes in the mail. So thank you to the Registrar of Voters for doing all that you can. But now it's up to us, the residents of District 4, to go out and vote and make sure we vote in the best D1. I said that. Oh, I didn't. So I was just checking if you were listening to me. So I know you were paying attention, because I got corrected by my sisters to my right. So it is District 1. And again, it covers the South region. And again, please go out and vote. The deadline is Tuesday, April 8th. Again, thank you for launching the Mojo podcast with the International Women's Day online forum. We'll have much more to talk about later, but thank you again, and have a great weekend, everyone. All right, have a great day.
Thank you. Okay. I'm making sure that it's MP stream, so I don't. Okay.